Welcome to Naked Spirituality, a video blog series of sacred attention therapy. My name is Rob Meagher. For more information about sacred attention therapy and our video blog series, please visit our website at www.sacredattentiontherapy.com. These video blogs are intended to be spontaneous, unscripted dialogues between myself and other participants in the Sacred Attention Therapy study group. And we use these video blogs to dive deeper into discussion emanating from the discussion groups. Our guest today is Jessie Ann Nichols George. And among the many things that Jessie does, and of the many things we'll talk to Jessie about today, is her blog talk radio show called Code Connections, previously Activating Compassion. Jessie's website is www.jessieannicholsgeorge1.com. Her website address and other contact information for Jessie will roll in the scrolling credits at the end of the video. And I'd now like to invite Jessie to come on screen.
Hi.
Hello! The marvels of technology, we get connected.
Yes.
Jessie, I want to begin by publicly thanking you for your loving support of Richard Harvey's work and my collaborative work with Richard through Sacred Attention Therapy. You've been so supportive, and I was so glad to have this opportunity, if for no other reason, to reciprocate the kindness that you've shown to us in the past. So I'm so glad we're able to come together today in this space.
It's definitely a pleasure to be here, and I greatly appreciate the opportunity and the gift, because it is definitely that, a gift.
Thank you. I've been to your website, and there's just such a beautiful offering on your website and so much potentially to talk about. But let's begin with Code Connection, your new blog talk radio show. What is Code Connection? How did it come to be? How did it manifest? And what led you to this work?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I've been involved in a lot of spiritual practices and work for my entire life. It is something that's come up through my family heritage from many generations, over 13 generations, as a matter of fact. And, a few years back, I decided I really kind of need to maybe start actually marketing myself, for lack of better terminology. And I was in a position of being in southern Utah, and I said, great, what's my message going to be? And I really struggled with getting my message into the world and saying, well, where is my focus? And so I kind of took this reverse approach, and I said, well, what's my pet peeve? And my pet peeve was judgment. And judgment, I looked at and I said, well, what's this kind of counterpart to judgment? And that would be compassion. So I started focusing on compassion. And originally the show was called Activating Compassion, which is the name of the first book that I put out.
Mm-hmm.
And that did all recently shift, because over the last period of time, and particularly this year, I've been very focused on something that's very, very dear to my heart, which is knowing the truth of things. You know, it's so easy to get deceived by the media, and it's so easy to get wrapped up in what somebody tells us in life instead of taking the experience of it. And so I thought, I've always been a bit of a rebel and a little bit on the outside and a shaker up of things. So, I looked at codes more and more, and I found a way to start tapping into people's personal life codes and their soul codes and the lessons that they're learning. Mm-hmm. And I actually worked on some cold crime cases earlier this year with some things that were happening. And I in the past also have worked with trying to locate a friend who went missing, actually, and worked with the police department when I was living in Arizona. So it's not totally new on one hand, but it kind of brings together all these different pieces I've been offering. And as I did this, I realized that we all have this connection in codes. And nothing is per se right or wrong. It takes the judgment out of things. So codes really help us live a compassionate life. When we're working with our personal codes, when we are understanding what works for us, and I found a lot of answers as I started to unfold this. So I started to understand that, this is why you can take the very same thing and it works for one person, it doesn't work for somebody else. One person loves it, one person just despises it, and it's all okay. So I now call myself a code interpreter as a result. I have learned to interpret what's happening for somebody in their life and help them understand that, and thus help them get direction, help them understand the truth of what they're connecting with and what they're not connecting with, so they can understand how to make better choices. And then I can refer them on out to people like you and Richard, who are doing this amazing work in the world, and go, here's a program that codes to you. Go do it. Go learn it. Go work with it. And a lot of people go, wow, you're right. This is really resonating for me. So I had my radio show running, Activating Compassion, and I said, I'm one of those people that I can't tell people to do things unless I'm doing it myself. And I figure, if I'm going to call myself a code interpreter and this is what I'm doing, I better have this implemented across the board in my own life. So I started recently shifting, again, the title of my work. I started shifting everything to code to me. And so I then brought out the radio show Code Connection, and I shifted the show name over, and now the show is taking on more and more of an aspect of learning the truth about things, also still bringing on guests and learning about their work as well through that show. But I'm also going to open up to different things that might be some of those sensitive areas in the world, looking at some of the world events that are going on, looking at, maybe campaign candidates or things like that, and sharing with people, this is the energy we're going to get from this person. You can't hide from codes. There's no way to hide from them. So here's what we're actually dealing with here. And just open that up so that people can make wise choices, so that they can understand and not be deceived so much, and that they can find the modalities that are going to work for them, that they can find the paths that will open them up. Because I think ultimately that's where we're headed, is what is going to get you to where we're all headed.
Just one of the things I enjoyed hearing about what you just described in Code Connections was this idea of listening, to someone else, revealing the truth. And there's this wonderful saying that is plastered all over the Sacred Attention Therapy website in the banner, and it's a quote from Richard. And the quote is, listening with the whole self to the soul of the other. And I hear that's inherent in most of the work you do through Code Connections.
Absolutely. And I think we really get into that on some of the weekend events I do, where I run people's codes ahead of time, and then we spend time out in nature, and we spend a full day or a full weekend. I can also do full week ventures with people and things like that too. And yes, when we listen to the whole self, and that's one of the pieces I really love about Richard's work, is listening to the whole self and listening with the whole self.
Yes.
And being present, being attentive, being aware. Because we tend to just take things in based on hearsay. We take it in based on what we're sold or programmed to believe, instead of stopping and going, what's really happening here? Is this person really upset with me? Or maybe there's something else going on. Maybe there's something that's just not working for them in their own life right now, and I'm taking it personally.
I love the strong connection you have with nature. Many of your video blogs, your personal video blogs, are done outdoors. And I have to share this with you, Jessie, because I had a wonderful laugh um, and you may join me in this laughter. It was within actually the past few days. Back up a few weeks ago, where I was on YouTube, doing my own production and uploading videos, and while that's uploading, you watch other videos, perhaps. And there was this video of this woman who was talking about the harvest. And she was talking about it was harvest time, and she was talking about the beautiful connection of, the harvest to nature and all of life. And I didn't think too much of it, other than there was an authenticity. That's what came through. There was an authenticity in this person speaking about the harvest. Didn't think anything of it. Understand that you and I had not, and have not still, met in person, and I hadn't seen a picture of you up to that point. And so then I get onto your website and I'm going through your video blog series, and there's the video. It was you. And I thought, this is perfect. This is wonderful. I'd like you to tell me about your mission of compassion, because it is highlighted and emphasized on the website. It was, of course, the founding of the name of the previous incarnation of the Blog Talk Radio, Activating Compassion, but you've carried that forward into Code Connection, but it remains. And what is this mission of compassion that is a foundation of the work you do?
I have spent so much of this life, as I mentioned, being judged by people. Oftentimes in a lot of the videos you mention the authenticity. And, I don't have a lot of makeup on in those videos. And I went through a period where my hair got very frizzy for a while and all kinds of funny things. And
it's beautiful, Jessie. It's beautiful.
And I just owned it. But it's interesting, the different judgments that I see come through. Because, for example, when I was younger in life, I had the physical appearance of a model, and I did modeling for a while. And I embraced a lot of sportswear. I was too short for a lot of the modeling venues, so I did a lot of sportswear and that type of thing. But it's kind of fun that I was judged because of my beauty back then. I was judged because I wasn't willing to follow the crowd when I was in grade school or high school. I did my own thing. I was judged for being on the outside. It seemed like judge. And I said, this is a big pet peeve. And interesting as I reflect back, of course, judgment deals a lot with living someplace other than the truth and someplace other than the moment, because it's always about focusing on outside of the self instead of the inner self being fully there and connected. Mm-hmm. And I was then judged for being spiritual, and then I was, all these different pieces along the way. And I got very comfortable with that throughout my life, but I said that if I could change one thing in this world, it would be to get people to stop judging and to stop seeing that everything is right or wrong. It all just is. Mm-hmm. And, compassion. And I looked at it and I said, well, what is that polar opposite? What is the opposite to judgment? And compassion is what I came up with. Mm-hmm. And what I found was, wow, that's a really big topic, isn't it? To look at compassion. Mm-hmm. And I pondered on this for a while, and I said, well, if most people are anywhere like me in a normal human sense, I first sat down and said, well, that's kind of the big thing that gurus do, and and people that just have time, monks, who have time to meditate all day. And I certainly don't have the time to spend 8 hours a day meditating. So I also thought to myself that for the average person out there, or the person who goes out and they've got a job, whether that is their own business or whether that is working for somebody else, most people out there don't have that kind of time, and they need to be able to implement something into their everyday life. If it can't be implemented into the everyday life, chances are people are going to go, yeah, it's too much effort, it's too much trouble.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you make that New Year's resolution and you say, I'm going to go work out 3 hours a day. That's probably not going to happen. But if you say, I'm going to take a walk around the block every night after dinner, and that's going to take me 15 minutes, you're more likely to follow through on that because it only takes 15 minutes out of your day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I looked at it, and then, interesting, after I wrote the book, it kind of clicked in with me, and I go, isn't that interesting? That's supposed to be the next big prophecy message of the world, where if you look at all the spiritual belief systems that are out there, and I studied world religions for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and the one thing said, the core truth will run through all religions and all belief systems. And so when I looked at that, I said, well, isn't it interesting that compassion runs through every single one of them?
Mm-hmm.
And this is supposed to be what so-called, saves the world, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that was really my focus. And my mission is to really awaken people to be not only more compassionate with others, but more compassionate with themselves. And that's where I feel like the codes were such a beautiful complement to open up with this, because it allowed me to keep the foundation of that work, and it provided a vehicle or the next step, or whatever you want to say, to becoming compassionate. It helped people take that step to living more compassionately.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such small gestures. We make it this big thing that for most people, I think they've felt it's been very intangible in their life. It's like I said, they see that as what the monks and the priests and the gurus and people do. But small things like just becoming fully present and saying, I don't need to be upset over this car cutting me off. What if I just take my time and pull off the gas a little bit and relax and enjoy the journey a little bit more? What if I just leave myself an extra 10 minutes? What if I open the door for somebody? Because you never know what's going to be the turning point.
Yeah.
And this got driven beautifully home for me today, because I go out there and so many times I never know whether my work is reaching people. I don't get the responses. I don't get the feedback, and I have to just be confident that this is benefiting me and not just the rest of the world. And if I'm benefiting myself, I am benefiting the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And so in living my talk, this beautiful message came through to me from a Facebook friend today. And it said, just kind of affirmed how much their life had been touched.
Yeah.
And how it showed that, you remind me every day that we can be whole. And you remind me every day that we can live in this beautiful space.
It's so interesting that you share what you've just shared, this idea of doing the work that you and I do in our own beautiful way. And sometimes we do question, Jesse. Sometimes we do wonder, is anyone out there? Is anyone seeing this? Is anyone reading this? Is anyone benefiting from this? And I don't know what your experience has been, but in the few times I have doubted, I'll almost, to say immediately is being a little dramatic, but pretty shortly thereafter, I will get a sign. And one of the more dramatic signs I've experienced in the time that I've launched my own personal ministry, and of course that has weaved itself in symbiotically with collaboration with Richard Harvey through sacred attention therapy. But there was interesting story. There was a LinkedIn connection that offered itself to me, and so I accepted. And always when I accept, these LinkedIn connections, I send a message as graceful as I can, something along the lines of thank you for the connection, thank you for the opportunity to stay connected. And one of the ways I'm going to do that with you is sign you up for my monthly newsletter. If you don't want to be on the monthly newsletter, just tell me and I'll remove you. Or you have the opportunity to remove yourself at any time. So the response I got back from this dear soul was one of, I'll paraphrase and I'll try and be gentle and polite, but they informed me that they weren't interested in the newsletter. They were far more interested in working with serious people to save lives. So that was the essence of the message. It had been only 2 days earlier that I got, in the same day, from 2 different people, unsolicited, a message telling me that my posts, as part of my my daily sharings, had, quote, saved their lives. And I just found it was so interesting that Spirit would have it that it would give me this feedback to allow me to know before this other feedback came from this other individual. My point is never underestimate the power of our giving. Never underestimate that we give, because when it comes from the heart, as it does with you, that's maximal. There is nothing more we can do. And the energy that is released in and of itself through that heals the world. And people are listening, people are watching, and people are being healed. And you are changing lives, and you are saving lives. And I think it offers us an opportunity to trust. It offers us an opportunity to rest in our authenticity, coming back to that, and know that we're exactly where we need to be. But never underestimate that power of giving, because as long as it comes from the heart, it will always serve a heartful purpose.
I really agree with that. And the authenticity, I think, is such a big piece. And I know in my work, I've done it my way, the way it worked for me with what I had to work with. And I did not have all the resources that a lot of other people had. And I didn't sit there and worry about what I didn't have. I sat back and said, this is what I do have to work with. And what am I going to do with this? Mm-hmm. And I've hit some very big challenges along the way. One, of course, which I shared in a book that is in the process of coming out called Embraced by the Divine, and kind of a women's anthology of Dark Nights of the Soul type stories. And, so it's not that it's always about the easy road, but it's about what do I have to work with right now in this moment. And that authenticity is huge. We're so often programmed, if you get this program, if you do your marketing this way, you're going to be big, you can charge this rate. Well, maybe that's not what yours is about. Maybe that's not the way that resonates. And I always encourage people, get out of that cookie cutter. Get out of doing it the way everybody tells you have to do it, unless it resonates for you. And open that door, because I think when the message does come through authentically, and like you, I think even the last couple of days, it's like, I know I'm on track, I know I love what I'm doing, but at the same time, there's a piece of me every now and then that creeps in and goes, boy, I think maybe I just will go do my own practice someplace and not deal with the rest of the world and things like that. And I've hit a couple of walls over the last couple of weeks and said, nope, I'm just going to turn this around, and I'm not going to repeat the pattern I have in the past. And I'm going to handle this in my own authentic, loving way. I'm going to sit back, I'm going to watch, I'm going to observe and I'm going to see what's really coming through here. And then I'm going to send out all the love I can give it, because I know whatever is coming through those people is also a piece of myself. And so I'm going to continue to do it. And like you say, the messages are always timely, and they're always on track.
Perfect. They're always perfect. Jesse, I don't want to lose the opportunity to talk about some of the other wonderful work you do. Again, if someone went to your website and very quickly, www.jesseandnicholsgeorge1.com, and we'll have that scrolling in the credits at the end, as well as with some other contact information for you, like your email address. If they go to the website, it's just, again, it's a feast. And we've been focusing mostly on Code Connection, but there's many other things that you do and that are present on your website. Can you talk a little bit about those other gifts that are offered through your website?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've got a lot of things. I mentioned briefly the weekend type of work where I do events around the seasons. And again, I've shifted a lot of my work to tie in to the code interpretation work. I find it just such a huge thing, because when we understand ourselves, we understand how to move forward. But I also do things that are aligned with healing grids. And so somebody comes to me and says, really, I could use some very positive energy or some assistance in this way, and I will set up a healing grid and do an actual ceremony for that person based on what the need is. And sometimes that just happens, because sometimes we're worn down in the world. It's not that we can't do the work ourselves, but sometimes we just need that little energy boost to pull our inspiration back around and pick our feet up and keep going, or just to be, surrounded with personal energy. I know myself, I've been through those phases where you can just be bombarded because maybe you're trying to caretake an elderly parent, or deal with family, or deal with the basic world out there, whatever the case is, and you're dealing with a lot of people that might be negative in your sphere, and your energy gets worn down. So sometimes having somebody go and tune it up, it's just like going to a massage therapist and getting a massage. It's got benefits for you. Massaging yourself isn't always the same. And sometimes just having somebody pour some beautiful energy into your life can work very well in that sense. So that's another key area of focus that I do. But the weekend events are based around seasonal times of the year, the shifting and turning of the year. So our autumn equinoxes, I have one coming up here in Sioux Falls for the autumn equinox time frame. I'll be doing another one in Sioux Falls around the Halloween time frame. And so those seasonal turning points of the year, Yule, which is right around Christmas time also, what somebody's belief system is. And these are very, like I mentioned, intensive experiences out in nature. Right now, I used to take more people in these events. Right now, I only take 6 people in these events, because I want to be able to focus in on those people. And we run the codes, and then we start looking at everything, but we use nature as our teacher. And I love to be out in nature, because it is real, it's authentic, it's genuine, and everything that we need to know, it talks to us in the universal language of signs and symbols. And that's a big part of my work as well. And people that look at my work, if they go in, and as you mentioned, there's a plethora of choices there in a sense. I blend about 50 plus different modalities into what I do, and I just kind of integrate them seamlessly into the work. But we spend this time, and we spend out in nature, and we'll walk trails, and we'll do different things, and we'll use whatever comes up in the process. And oftentimes we'll start the day, and we'll say, okay, well, what's my intention for the day? What is it that I want to work on? And what I do is, I don't have a set formula like, okay, we're going to sit down and study this today. I have a method of show up, tell me what's happening in your life.
Yeah.
And let's work in a very conversational, real manner here. There's no format. Whatever is coming up for you is exactly what you're going to need to know.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'll set that intent, and throughout the day, they'll get the answers and the messages. And I work with them to put those pieces together.
Jesse, what's the True North Tour?
So the True North Tour is a blend of workshops, events, seminars, book signings. I'm gradually working on bringing in fundraiser events because I have a couple of organizations very dear to my heart, like Live and Let Live Farm Rescue in Cheshire, New Hampshire, who rescues all kinds of animals, but they put a big focus on horses. They rescue from across borders, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I go around and I share my work with people. And it used to be called the Compassion Tour. It's now the True North Tour as of this fall, which I'll be headed to just outside of Philadelphia to a little town called Pottstown, Pennsylvania. And I'll be just outside of Washington, D.C. at an area around Fairfax, Virginia, and just outside of Boston in Westford, Massachusetts at Aquarius Sanctuary. And I go around and I've got a sat song and a healing event going on at Aquarius Sanctuary. I'm going to do a code interpretation event at the Enlightened Path Holistic Center in Pottstown. So people get a chance to come and experience the work. And here they can catch me live for private sessions at that time. I do a variety of different things from coaching style work through healing work, working with the angels, code interpretation work on the tours, even just little personal readings where I blend and incorporate all of the elements into helping them get insights. Sometimes I work with people's names. Names is a big foundation in the code work. And it's really great for people who have changed their name legally or maybe were adopted at birth or adopted somewhere in their life and their name changed or they don't know the birth information. So this gives me a way to really help them get in and do that exploration. So the True North Tour I came up with because as I moved into the code interpreting work, what I found is that what I'm really doing is helping people find their own personal true north. So that has become the focus. What is your personal true north?
Beautiful. How does Main Street Universe fit in with all that you do at this time?
You know, it's really great. They came to me a few years ago, and they were one of the first interviews I started offering up to people. And it was really fun. I got asked to do one interview with Kevin Baird, and he came back around, and I think it was like I don't know, a day or two before the interview, he goes, we want to do a second interview of you. And I'm like, okay, so I did like 2 interviews in 5 days or 4 days of each other with them. And then he came back after the first interview, and I hadn't even done the second one yet. And he says, we want to offer you a spot having your own radio show. And it was very ironic because it couldn't have been, but a couple of weeks prior to that I was thinking, I probably really should put together my own radio show. But when I checked into things and people would contact me, they would go, oh, it's only $1,500 a month, or $2,000 or $4,000 a month. And I'm like, you're crazy. And so they came and they made this offer, and I thought, okay, what's the catch? How much do you want? And they said, no, we want to offer you a show for free. And I said, well, that works for me. That's, within my budget. And what I loved about their concept is they do a lot of different things. They do readings, and they have like a variety of different people that are from the different spiritual arenas on the show. Like right now they've got a Vedic astrologer that's part of our regular host on the show. They've got Susan Weed, who does trees and plants and herbs and that whole magical herbal arena. And we've got Daniel and Janice, who host our main show. And Janice is getting ready to spin off and do her own show. I'm going to be doing an interview with her soon. And so it just kind of opened up. But their whole aspect was the world is right there in your block, on your street. Just get out and walk down the street, and the whole universe is there. It's not out there in some big, flashy format. It's right there in your space, in your hometown. Mm-hmm. It's not the big cities necessarily. It's wherever you are. And so their whole foundational theme was about real life, everyday people who you meet on the street in everyday life. And I thought that fits in with what I'm doing.
Yeah, beautiful. Jessie, it has been delightful to share this space with you. I'm so glad we had the opportunity. I'm trusting we're going to stay in touch, perhaps in this milieu in the future, perhaps the other way around. Trust we'll keep in touch through social media, but I want to continue to thank you for your support. I try and reciprocate through social media as much as I can as well. It's wonderful to create that energy, and I trust that people observe that energy and that sharing and that support that we show for each other, and that they extend that to others, because it really is what makes the world go round.
I thank you for giving me this time and coming on and sharing and making this connection, because I think there's so many similarities in what you're doing and Richard is doing and what I'm doing.
Indeed.
And when we make these connections, and I find people like yourself who I can really genuinely share the work and feel really good about what I'm sharing with people. Mm-hmm. And we do develop that network, I think, in there, because I've seen that with a couple of other circles of people that I've connected with along the way. And what's really great about that is that people from your network, people from my network, they all get exposed to our work, and they realize, wow, here's this really interesting collective of people. Yeah. And they're really bringing home something that is resonating and helping me. And if I can help open the door for people to get to know the rest of that work and what other options are out there for them, then that's fantastic.
And likewise. So I thank you for that continued support. And for the last time, website is www.jessieannnicholsgeorge1.com, and the email address is jessie@jessieannnicholsgeorge1.com, and those will be scrolling in the credits at the end of the video. So I'll thank you, Jessie. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.